Hi Ramanand. In today's episode, we're going to talk about this book called Checklist Manifesto by Dr. Atul Gawande. So, what's a book written by a doctor doing in our toolkit here?
So if you think about it, doctors make, you know, critical decisions every day, especially if you're a surgeon, author of this book. And what he tells us that over time, they figured out that a simple tool called the checklist just consists of a list of items that you cross off one by one. They actually save lives. And not only that, they have helped humans deal with complex technology. They help fly aircrafts, for instance. And wherever people can get overloaded with information or activity, a checklist can actually help you stay grounded and land that plane very safely. So, if it works for people like surgeons and pilots, they can certainly help us get better in our day to day life, help us not miss something that we should have kept in mind. But remember, going back to thinking fast and slow and system 2 and system 1, system 2 can get overloaded and it needs allies. The checklist is one such ally.
And another important takeaway for me from that book was that it certainly takes away the emotion out of the whole thing. Like they say in the book, it's not like a nurse questioning the credentials of the doctor. There's a checklist, everyone has to follow that. The checklist doesn't have an ego of its own. Checklist is just there, everyone goes and either puts a check mark there or not. I think that is very important takeaway.
And it's like having an additional brain at your disposal, a brain that does not forget. It reminds you, it is just waiting for you to use it. And coupled with this lack of emotion means that this little brain is almost purely system 2. So that's why it helps us do our creative work best along with this systematic approach, because remember that the other side to upleveling and future relevance is the systematic deliberate nature of it. Things like checklist bring that spine to leveling.
So you're also saying that in no way does having a checklist make less creative or reduce your flair. It'll actually add more spine and make you more robust.
Quite, because the role of systems is to, help us do our best work consistently, because the difference between a creative professional and creative amateur is that the creative professional will show up every day with almost his best, and checklists can play a vital role in that. I'll give you an example. We were talking about made to stick and the success principle framework that they have. It consists of 6 elements. So oftentimes when we have workshops around, say, bringing more a culture of storytelling or any kind of cultural intervention where there is some kind of change, how do you create that institutional memory to remember to apply what you have promised to do in certain situations? For example, you want to send out a sticky message on LinkedIn or via email or as a PowerPoint. You need to remember to use these 6 elements. And so a checklist which is built around made to stick plays that vital role in that environment. So that's how it can make you a better creative person.
So we've seen the sports persons use checklists. They've almost institutionalized the whole thing. It is second nature for them. When you see a Rafael Nadal do his thing with the bottles, or a Steve Waugh, how he used to prepare for a match. You've seen scientists use it. You've seen doctors use it. But we don't see a lot of regular people use checklists. And what are they missing out on by not using checklists, and why do they do that?
So I think the simplicity of the checklist is its own enemy, and the checklist manifesto draws attention to this part. We are used to thinking of a checklist like a grocery shopping sort of a list, right? And we leave it there. Even in that situation, it ensures that we don't forget important or even less important kinds of things. We come home completely successful. What we miss is that because in situations of change, in situations of complexity, you don't have to have a app or you don't have to have a complicated sort of a change management procedure. And sometimes this around change management or making change happen, almost finds the checklist as a solution to be too good, too simple, too humble to bring into practice. And I think a checklist needs a good PR agent, and the checklist manifesto aptly plays that role.
And why do you consider the Checklist Manifesto, the book, an important part of the Uplevelers Toolkit?
This series and Choose to Think is all about handling a shape-shifting world. And what it means is a lot of things. Like, we are not Rafael Nadal because the rules of tennis have been the same. The rules of life and business have kept changing. So a lot of our ingrained habits don't always serve us well in newer contexts. And so we need that second brain to help us implement new ideas, whether it is a new culture that we are trying to create in our team, or whether it is a personal habit that we want to develop for ourselves. If you get into the habit of using a checklist and get into a situation of change, you have with you a systematic tool that can help you deal with any form of change. And I think that is why it is so important.
We've covered the main takeaway from this book. How do we use ideas from this book? What are people missing because they don't know ideas from this book? And why do you consider this an important part of the Uplevelers Toolkit? So I think we can bring this particular episode home.